Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the FinTech Hunting Podcast. We have an incredible guest for you today. He's a thought leader. He's got a wealth of knowledge and expertise in mortgage recruiting. He's a man of faith. And what you may not know is he is also a two-time pie eating contest winner. Please
Two
help me
times.
welcome to the show, Connor Bartley, Senior Business Development Consultant and Recruiter for Loan Depot. Connor, welcome to the show.
Woo, man. Talk about a hot introduction right there, man. I love it. Thank you. Love the energy. Happy to be here, Michael.
Well, it is great to have you. I'm glad you do have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. We'll talk about the pie eating later. But
Sure.
for the listeners who may not be familiar with you, Connor, give us a little bit of your background. How did you get into the mortgage industry? How did you get into recruiting? Why don't we start there?
Yeah. So, recruiting, we'll start there since that happened first. I was in business to business sales for telecom. Getting kicked out of buildings, being told no, all day long, right? And it's just a lonely, lonely job. You eat lunch by yourself every day. You get told no all day long. And a couple of the people I worked with were leaving the company to go into this thing called recruiting. So I decided to check it out for myself and ended up getting a job with a healthcare recruiting company, helping registered nurses get jobs at hospitals. And these were full-time direct hire jobs. It wasn't travel nursing. This was a big commitment if a nurse was going to accept a job. And what amazed me about that was how many people would take jobs over the phone across the country. I mean, nurses in Illinois taking jobs to go, relocate their life to Phoenix, Arizona to work at another hospital. It was wild. They never even went to the hospital. It's just over the phone. So I did that for a number of years. And then, 2008 came, and that was difficult on all of us. But for me, it was the challenge was a hospital saw a nurse as an expense and not as a revenue generating employee. And so the hiring really slowed down on the nursing side, and it picked up a lot on the physician side. So it was a lot like loan officers and operations people, right? And so in a difficult time. And so I decided I wanted to be the master of my own destiny because all I did was recruit at the time, and I was working what they would call a split desk. So I went to a full desk environment where I could find my own clients, and I did a lot of oil and gas recruiting in that. I'm in the Dallas area. There's a lot of oil companies out here, and then eventually things, fell apart in oil and gas. We went from $100 a barrel to like $30 a barrel nearly overnight, and oil companies weren't hiring anymore all of a sudden. And so in an attempt to find a new client, I actually had come across a mortgage company locally that hired temps because I did temp staffing as well. And so I reached out to try and have them be a client of mine, and they asked me to come in for an interview. And so I took them up on that and found out a little bit more about recruiting loan officers and this whole, crazy industry that we're in. And figured I'd give it a shot. And, 8 years later, here I am. So it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Well, and as we talk about recruiting, a lot of it is relationship building. Expand upon that a little bit and tell me kind of your approach to how do you build relationships and how do you start finding out good fits, who's a right fit, who's not a right fit. Walk me through that process a little.
Sure. So I think the first thing you should do as a recruiter is really try to understand who is a good fit. If you are simply going after production and a pulse, you're going to end up with some disappointing end results as you go along. So really understanding and honing in who is it, and it's not just this. I only want to hire producers over 20 million and this, that, the other. I mean, there need to be specific attributes about an individual that would fit well with your leadership style or within the structure of what your company has to offer. Okay. So dial that in and then go and see if you can find out if the people who are just on the page the first time you call, right? But see if they sort of fit into some of those characteristics. Do your research before you give them a call. I can't emphasize that point enough. I can't tell you how many loan officers I talk to that are frustrated by the amount of calls they get of people that don't know anything about them when they call. So
Yep.
do your research, get some understanding of who they are if you can. Not everybody's got a social media presence, but a lot of people have a bio on their company page. You can read some reviews and get a sense of sort of how their service was, or if there are different surprise and delight moments within their process. Really try to find out who it is you're going to be talking to, show that you've taken an interest, and then just have a conversation. In my world, at least the way I approach it, and others may do it differently, I do not want to go in for the hire on the first phone call.
Right.
It is about earning the right to make the second phone call for me, and really just building that relationship and then adding value along the way, and really just trying to bring something of purpose to that candidate along the process. And eventually, it becomes kind of a, what, I should just go work over there. Yeah, that kind of thing. And when that unfolds, it's great. But you also have to understand that it may never be a yes. It may always be no, and be okay with that and continue to treat that relationship like a friendship, and not just cart it off to the side and say, you know what, that's a big waste of time, because it's not. There's always value in having a conversation and collaborating and getting to know other people, because you never know what that could lead to in some other way, right? So yeah, it's about relationship and value for me.
I absolutely love that. And that can apply to recruiting. It can apply to whether you're selling software and services into the industry. It can apply as a loan officer working with potential borrowers. If you take the time to build the relationships and truly add value, good things are going to come, may not instantly, but it may lead to something else in the future. Great insights there. Talk to me about, what do loan officers need to do to stand out in today's market? It's not just about production, as you mentioned. So what can they do if they're starting to look? How can they help stand out in a very competitive marketplace?
So for me, I think it just continue showing up, whether that, and it depends on what it is you want to focus on as a loan officer. But let's say you're the open house LO and you want to, build your relationships with realtors through being at open houses. Don't get discouraged if the first time you go to an open house, you don't set an appointment with that realtor. Show up again, right? The same thing with, anything community involvement, right? If you want to build a consumer first strategy and you really want to go after the relationship side and build relationships with people in your community, you just got to continue showing up. How you stand out, right? Just be consistent and provide education, and share your knowledge and become a person worth knowing in your community. But furthermore, just to continue reinforcing that, I think it's important for a loan officer to really stay connected to their own industry, and be a constant student of this industry. There's so many free resources out there with podcasts and with social media and what everyone shares. And I think it's just so important to continue staying connected, to have a network internally of people at other companies that you can collaborate with, that see things perhaps from a different perspective, and just continue educating yourself and networking and collaborating and gaining that new insight and knowledge. You're never done learning. So I think that's a great way to stand out, is just stay with the trends and stay ahead.
Never done learning. I love that. Lifelong learning is critical. No matter what side of the business you're on, no matter what aspect, we can always learn something new. We can gain a new insight. We can foster and grow a relationship. You mentioned podcasts. You mentioned social media. Talk to me. You've done a wonderful series on 100 podcasts in 100 days. What are some of the key takeaways you took from that experience, and really seeing how much value and knowledge is out there?
Yeah. So I started that journey as a way to be respectful to the people that I recruit. I really wanted to gain some more insight into what the loan officer's world was like, because I've never originated.
Okay.
And I don't think I ever will. I don't know if I, but I felt like it was just the respectful thing to do. I had heard the quote before. I can't recall. It was on another podcast that I listened to, but there was a reference to a top producing loan officer who had mentioned that they wanted to be the best realtor to never sell a house and go through an educational process of learning what a realtor's world is like to where they can really understand and get on the same level with the people that they were doing business with every day, help them solve problems the way a realtor would, help them just kind of really understand their world
Yeah.
and add value to them. And so that was where that really clicked for me with what I was doing with the podcast is I wanted to learn as much as I could so that I could add value back to a loan officer when I talked to them. There have been so many great strategies shared on podcasts from, being a knowledge broker and hosting classes, social media insights on how to, become a quote unquote influencer or really just to be, grow your personal brand. There's just how to build a team. There's a lot of different things that get shared on these podcasts that are valuable. And as I talk to somebody, I might hear a place in their journey that they're at where they could use just that extra bit of information, that extra, I'm stuck. I'm kind of in this place. And so, hey, I got a podcast for that. And that's where I go back to. So right now I'm kind of in the process of putting together, I'm on day 87 of the 100, and on the side I'm putting together a newsletter that will put all 100 in the same place. So it would just be a resource guide basically of here are the 100 that I listen to, and and this is what each one is all about, and here's a link if you want to listen to it. So that's coming soon, I guess.
I love that. What do LOs, we talked about what LOs need to do to stand out, but what should they be looking for in a company, right? Maybe they're a little frustrated. Maybe they don't feel like they have the support that they want from leadership, or they don't have the technology, or they don't believe in the culture anymore. What do you believe that loan officers should look for if they're looking to make that transition and shift?
Inspiration. If you don't feel like where you're at is a good fit for you anymore, first give that current company the benefit of the doubt and try to rediscover it, right? Try to fall back in love with the place that you're at first. Like I would, because I know making a change as a loan officer is really hard.
Yep.
So if you can, fall back in love with where you're at, that's great. But it's not possible if it's just, you've tried it and you just don't feel it's there. I would go try to find an inspirational place and then make sure it just aligns with your values and that it has everything that you need. Like it's very important. Like you've got to ask a lot of questions. And that's another reason why I think the recruiting process for loan officers is so challenging because it is time consuming, but
Yep.
but you really do need to take the time to make sure that you're making the right choice. Vet out a couple of options, but look, know yourself first and gain a good understanding of what it is you need. Take a look at your business. Say these are the most common products. This is the most common demographic that I do business with. This is how I do business. These are the kind of marketing strategies that I believe are important and help me be successful. And then find the company that supports that and has a leadership that can really push you towards that, hold you accountable, and help you reach the goals that you have. If you go to a new company and find yourself on your own all of a sudden, that's a really challenging situation to be in. So that's what I would look for is alignment with leadership and just that inspirational factor that makes you fall back in love with the business and do the things that you're good at.
How can technology be a key differentiator for companies that are trying to attract loan officers? How can technology help that loan officer really do their job better?
It's efficiency gain. If you are working with an inefficient tech stack and you've got the blue wheel of death and you've got all these and things are just taking a ton of additional time that you could be using on another area of your business, that's holding you back, in the simplest of terms. It's really about finding an efficient tech that enables you with good data that helps you set up systems and processes to be as efficient and as a loan officer as you can be. Now, some of that's on the loan officer, right? If the tech is there
Right.
and you're just not going to set up the process, then I don't know what to do for you. But have that technology that's intuitive, that is well connected, and that helps you be efficient in your operation, so that you can go get more business and grow your business as a loan officer. Without it, you're stuck in every file you got.
What's one or two suggestions that you would leave for every loan officer who's pondering whether I should go, not go? What's one thing that you would give to them to say, hey, really focus on this before you decide to make a change or not make a change, or give them a tip? What's one thing you would
Sure.
leave with them?
I would say to call others that are at the company that you're considering, and just ask them questions. Get a third opinion, fourth opinion. Like really dive into to that company, and because these are people that have no skin in the game. They may or may not even know who you are, and yet they can give you some insight as to what it's like where they work, and also be open to hearing things that you don't want to hear. And what I mean by that is, I've recruited mortgage for 7 years, longer than that, 8 years, and I hear a lot of stories of, well, they didn't tell me about this or that, and the reality is the most transparent recruiting process is going to include some things that you don't like. And I think we have to accept the good with the bad, but also realize that if you've got 80 or 90% of everything you need, you're in a really good spot. And so don't be afraid to ask questions where you might get answers that you don't like. Don't automatically cast off an opportunity if you hear something that you don't necessarily agree with. But just continue pushing forward and really vet out each option and just take your time with it. And then seek other opinions from folks that are at the company and really try to get a full picture of everything that's there.
Connor, you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. You and I could continue this discussion far past the time that we have. But if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way they can get a hold of you? How can they further this discussion? Give me some input there.
You can find me on LinkedIn. And profile is my email, my cell phone. So just look me up on LinkedIn. You'll see a lot of what I think about the industry and what I post. You'll probably find a lot of other people in this industry that maybe you didn't know that add good value to other originators and share great ideas. And just find me there.
Well, then I'd be remiss if I didn't ask at least that one last question. Tell me about the pie eating contest. What kind of pies were they? Give us a little bit of that as we wind down this section of FinTech Hunting.
Yeah, so I'll share the short version, but it's a local event that my community holds. It's for Arbor Days, so it's going to be happening again here in April.
Okay.
And I'm in retirement, but every once in a while you get the itch. But no, went there, and it was the first year that they were actually having a pie eating contest. And I told my wife, I was like, I've just always kind of wanted to do one of these things. I'm going to do it. And the rules were 5 minutes, no hands, and you had an apple pie from Kroger placed in front of you, and it was just eat as much as you can in 5 minutes. And so clock starts, music starts, the guy's doing the microphone, and I'm just face first in this thing, and it's a lot. It's pretty challenging, but at the end, truth be told, it's really easy to win when you're up against one other adult and like 6 kids under the age of 13. So it was really me against another lady. But it's fun. I enjoyed coming back the next year and doing it again. And then I tried a third time and I got beat. The guy who won cleaned the whole dish out before 5 minutes. He was completely done with an entire pie. And then later that same day, you talk about a local legend. Same day, later, he won the pizza eating contest too. So
Ugh.
I don't even think I had a chance against this guy. But it's a lot of fun. It's just something to do to face dirty and be a dad story for later in life. So
Well, I love it. Connor, I can't thank you enough for all that you shared on this episode of the FinTech Hunting Podcast.